You know when the computer updates at the best time ever. Sometimes I have friends at Cardiac Radio who say, Vanessa, can I test before a specific program that you're gonna do? I say, no matter how hard you test.
It's true.
When you depend on the internet, you never know, right? So that's how it is. Today we're going to see some slides just to make sure that we have more information picked up by us. Science says that when we hear something, we usually retain like 7%. 7. That's why we need to keep going.
Wow.
Yeah, because 7 plus 7. One day we get to 100. Yeah. Somewhat, we have to wait a little bit, but that's okay. The topic that the good spirits assigned for us today is called Simplicity Cures Anxiety. Who is anxious nowadays? Who is not? Even the kids nowadays are anxious. Everybody's so anxious, and we blame on the internet for it. And actually, the internet, though dangerous, needs antivirus. It's not exactly the source of it all. Right? It can complicate a few things for us. But when are we anxious? Do you ever realize when you are anxious? Do you know where you feel in the body where you're anxious? Yes. It gets worse when you feel anxious. But you can, and how long does it take for you to pick it up? Is it like when you're getting there, when it's already crazy? It's already crazy. You're deep in the anxiety. You know why we're asking this question? Not only because we're waiting for the thing to open up again, but also to tell us that there are ways in which we can maximize avoiding anxiety. Knowing that we feel it is halfway through. So, when we know that we feel, we're halfway through taming it. The secret to emotional management is identifying it. Many studies show to us that when we get to know of feelings, the names, the definitions, and how we are into them, and where they feel in the body and how the body displays it, we have a higher chance of conquering it. But who has taught us to know these things? Seriously, nobody. You see how we're falling behind on earth, though we're living in the best, most developed country in the world. Yet, we don't have it. We're still to conquer that level, to know it. The Spiritist teachings talk about it, and I would say, from my studies of a few decades on Spiritism, I think it has a great contribution in regards to emotional management. Because Spiritism teaches us about what we feel, who we are, and thus how we can work on it. Many people outside these doors, they feel doomed to their feelings. They say, I'm an anxious person. They, boom, that's it. Nothing will fix it, not even the medication. Spiritism, as a science, at the vanguard of humanity's knowledge, is telling us, not necessarily. It's a passing moment. It has roots. If we observe where they are coming from, we can change it, because we're destined to progress. It changes our lives. It changes the way we look at ourselves. It changes the way we look at people. It changes the way we feel in life daily. If we go to the current studies, just in the US, just to give us an idea, good references for the current studies are in the National Institute of Mental Health. If you go to the website, you find information about all mental disorders, including anxiety. Well, according to studies, 18% of adults in the United States, 18 and older, feel anxiety to the point that it can impact our daily functioning. Okay? And they say that anxiety disorders last for at least 6 months and can get worse if they are not treated. But taking medication over the counter and doing anything, it's not going to help, because we're going to learn what anxiety is. What is anxiety? Anxiety, actually, according to the scientific definition, is a normal reaction to stress, and can actually be beneficial in some situations, of course, to preserve ourselves. Right? One of the main functions in our body is to protect itself from danger. Anything that that represents a threat sends a message to us to say, protect yourself. That's the stress response. Stress is good when not chronic. It's like this. There's a stimulus that is telling us, be careful. That is threatening you. It can be a snake in a forest, or it can be somebody, a boss, who is being very bossy. And he's like, always demanding more, demanding more, demanding more. Very stressful. Once, to survive is okay. The bear comes, and we have to climb a tree and stay there overnight. Once, but if you have to stay there for 10, 20, 30 days, and the bear is always trying to get you, you will probably die not out of hunger, but out of stress, because it imbalances the whole metabolic system. Anxiety comes when we have this fear of the unknown. It's like change. Stress is a response to change. Something is changing, we're moving to a new home, to a new school, to a new job, getting married, getting divorced, having a child, having a second child, a third child, a fifth child. Right? It's always change, right? Changing. And the changes are saying you need to adjust, you need to adapt. If we resist the adaptation to it, we're going to start malfunctioning. And there are people who are good at adapting quickly, and there are people who, for emotional reasons from previous lives and this life, they have a hard time adapting to minor changes. So we need treatment. Medication alone is not going to work, because we need to change the way we encode what we're seeing. When we move to a new country, of course it's stressful. To a new state, to a new city, to a new house. Immigrants go through a lot of stress. No wonder chapter 1 of the book, Among Brothers of Other Lands, psychographed by Chico Xavier and Paulo Vieira when they were traveling in the United States in 1965-66, chapter 1, 10 fundamental points for the Spiritist in a trip. Reading that will decrease our stress as we either travel somewhere or move somewhere, because it's going to help us encode the stimulus or the stimuli that are different to the ones that we're used to in our daily life, and adapt faster. We're no longer going to see American versus Brazilians versus Colombians versus Filipinian, etc. We're going to see a child of God reincarnated this time here. Who knew if in a previous life they were reincarnated in the same country where we were born this life? So that's why in that very chapter, Andrea Luiz ends, one day we will erase the word foreigner from our dictionary. Because when we're true spiritists, nationality doesn't really matter. It's just an external wrapping, if ever, because it doesn't change our biology. So when is anxiety a disorder, a problem in our lives? Because feeling anxious, oh my gosh, I'm going to the doctor, the results of the exam, the tests are going to come, oh my gosh, that anxiety is normal. But what about the anxiety that blocks us from actually working, waking up happy, eating, sleeping? So, when we feel excessive anxiety and it makes us suffer and it's difficult to control and it negatively affects our day-to-day life, that makes the case for an anxiety disorder. When it's pushing us away from functioning normally, we need help. Are there different types of anxiety disorder? Yes. We don't want to go over each and every one, but just so we recognize things we hear every day when people talk about panic disorder, it's under the umbrella of anxiety disorders. How many people have panic disorders? Now, I won't say panic disorder because it's a disorder, but attack. If you have never had, you may potentially have someday. Because not the disorder in itself, but the attack, because it's a byproduct of your biological system saying that you are in the ultimate threat. We as Spiritists, we understand through the books by Andrea Lewis that another mind can harass our mind to the point that we feel panicked. And then you go to the doctor, they say, there's nothing. And he's right, it's not physical, it's spiritual. There is what we call, under the umbrella of anxiety disorders, there's what we call the OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. There's so many different types. The problem is when it blocks us from functioning normally. PTSD is so common in war veterans, right? But in cases of child abuse, abuse in general, etc. So, post-traumatic stress disorder is under the umbrella of anxiety disorders, social phobias, or specific phobias, or general anxiety disorder. Why we're bringing this? Not to discuss because our share here is the spiritual part of it, but just to give us some reference, because we're also physical bodies, that's why we're incarnated. It's important that we acknowledge the scientific take on it, that we respect it, and that we use the doctors whenever needed to treat it. We do never recommend people to go only to the spiritual treatment side and forget about the physical. So we say, let's align both, because we're multidimensional beings. Ideally, we work with a physician, a psychologist, and a Spiritist center. Complete. And if we could go even further, if those doctors didn't treat it, a nutritionist, because food is the best medicine, always. If I eat ice cream every day and take anxiety medication, it's going to be hard to tame it, because sugar can push us to the abyss of anxiety. So cutting sugar is important. Don't eat sugar before you go to sleep, because it's going to be hard to sleep. Okay, I'm going to skip just one. We were going to talk about hoarding. Lately, there are many people experiencing the problems with hoarding as well. And science shows to us that hoarding is correlated to anxiety, the anxiety of accumulating. And just so you know that when we feel that, it's so tangible that scans of the brain, as you can see this, it shows to us that there is abnormal activity in the brain when we are hoarders, for example. So none of these anxiety disorders come true without a physical correlate. Okay? This is just to give us a brief idea, and we go straight to where we want to get. I think that's the most important part, because we don't want you to leave here today thinking, oh my gosh, am I a hoarder? Do I have a panic disorder? Do I have PTSD? Because the first thing you feel when you start studying more deeply, you start feeling there's parts of you there. But that's when psychology explains to us there are traits in us, not necessarily the disorder. Okay? We cannot in 5-10 minutes diagnose it. And there are phases. There are people who spend their whole reincarnation in the spectrum of anxiety disorder. There are reincarnatory reasons for it, spiritual reasons for it, but there are people who feel traits of it, spikes of it, throughout their reincarnation. For us, the focus of tonight is the therapeutic approach that only the gospel, the good news of our Master Jesus brings to us. Let's put a pause. We're living at such a funny time. I tell friends, you walk in the streets or you are in a business meeting and you say that famous F word.
Yeah.
And people, they're not surprised that you're saying the F word because it's okay. You turn on the TV, everybody's F, 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 F. That's why we don't turn on the TV. But then you say the G word, God. And everybody's shocked. She said God. Oh my gosh, she said God. Because it's, people really feel distanced from the foundation of life. And when we say Jesus, people are even more surprising. As if we're saying something that is so secretive, prohibitive, right?
They think you're a freak.
Yeah. In our Spiritist Center, we don't dispute it. Because for us, it's just the natural things in life. Everything in the universe has an order. And this order was created by God. We name God. We can name it energy, source, whatever it is. It's the same thing. Intelligence. And we know that in this beautiful, immense, ever-expanding universe, endless, there is order to the level that our planet has a team governing it in loving ways. And we know that the main authority assigned by God is named Jesus Christ. Of course, if we want to know more, there are books that explain how this is true. For us, it's a set thing. We're not going to prove and dispute or discuss. It's not dogma either. Because it comes after a series of research into realms, and our reasoning leads us to that direction. If the governance of the earth is under the jurisdiction of our dear Master Jesus, we will always find the solutions to all of our issues. Work issues, family issues, physical body issues, psychological issues, in the gospel, the good news. In this world that is constantly driven to more, people who I know who are writing books thinking that they're going to be the next famous person, or children, it's so sad to see children who are just in the elementary school dreaming of being the next viral YouTuber. Right, Rejane? As a teacher, don't you experience that every day? That leads them to so much anxiety. They cannot just live a normal life. You have to be more. You're always pushed in non-beneficial ways to do more just because it's not normal just to be. But Jesus came and taught us to be. He said, you've never heard of Jesus saying, no, Peter, I'm busy, don't you see it? Have you ever heard Jesus saying? or biting his nails and saying, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm gonna survive this night. We've never heard Jesus being anxious. How come, huh? How come? Or nervous. Or afraid. How come? Oh, he was not human. Yes, he was in the human body, teaching us to be really, 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 really like a real human. So it is possible not to enter this anxiety or to get out of it, not to enter unnecessary fears. If you see a lion, you better be afraid, of course. Run away. But if there's no lion, why feeling afraid? There are people who are afraid of getting out of the door of their house because something's going to happen. And you ask them, what is going to happen? I don't know. I just feel something's going to happen. What is it? I don't know. I have to go to work, but I'm afraid. That's not nice. That's not good. We need a solution. Everything becomes so convoluted, complicated. Not only Spiritism, but wise minds say that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Like Confucius, for example, life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. So ancient. We would say simplicity heals anxiety. Congratulations to the minimalist movement, because there are so many families running out of money because they think a bigger house is better, because everybody has a bigger house, big house. And thank God some people are coming to the senses and saying, you know, we don't need it. We don't need it. How many coats do you have? Don't need to tell me, sorry. But think about it. Why do we need many? Unless you work, your daily life asks you, but there are people who have many unnecessarily. Many pairs of shoes, many bags, many everything, many pencils, many pens, many everything. And always more and more and more. That drives us to this constant rush to the more and the anxiety, to the unknown, because there must be something more. And we see big celebrities in all different fields, from music to Hollywood movies to food shows to fashion design, recently and since all times having everything and committing suicide. So having things does not lead us to happiness. Recently somebody told me, I think I'll get more joy in my life when I start traveling more. If you show me one book that validates that thesis, give it to me. I've never read that book. Traveling more make us happier. We're talking about longitudinal study. I know we travel, come back, we may be a little more rested, a little bit happier. How long is it going to take? Until the next trip. That's not simple. very complicated. The solutions that the world are giving to us, very complicated. Who can give us solutions that are simple and effective? Only Him. Only the Master. He once said, do not be anxious. I'll let John read it for us, please, to feel more like Jesus.
And the Master recommends, do not be anxious, saying, what will we eat, or what will we drink, or what will we wear? As do the pagans who seek after all these things, because your Father knows what you need.
Look at this word. Pagans. That's what our society has become. Don't believe in anything, but in the things. And I know even Spiritists who go to centers. But they go. But when you bring that teaching to the daily life, changing us, changing the way we eat, we sit, we talk, they look at you like, as Val said, like we're freaks, right? Or like as if we are fascinated by it, fanatic. But these teachings are supposed to change the way we behave. Right before coming back from our trip, I met a beautiful old lady, was Carlos' aunt, one of them. She was leaving the house and she said, and we asked her, where are you going? She said, I'm going to Spiritist Center. After all, why am I going to stay home doing nothing? Congratulations to her. She's in the last third of her life. And she already knows what's the best part of it all. Staying home, watching TV, or going to a Spiritist Center. And she said, I'm going to go there to pray for the suicidal spirits. Oh, we wish we could import you to the United States. And have a meeting right here and have you coordinated. Of course, she can't. But that's the rationale we're talking about. It makes sense. Why stay home, do nothing, if you could go there and be useful? And we're going to be worried about what to eat. But God knows what we need. The birds are not worried, are they? The plants. When the storm is coming, like yesterday, we're like, oh my gosh. I've never seen like birds or trees running and desperate, like, oh my gosh, we need shelter. And it's amazing how much we learn from nature. As Jesus said, therefore seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you in abundance. What does that mean? It's a feeling thing. Because we know here. But in our daily life, we feel, sometimes I look at our little children and I realize that we're so alike. Because parents may be here, they're playing, and they lose sight that the parents are around. And they feel like they're on their own. And that's just like us. We're playing, and we feel like there's nobody taking care of us until something really bad comes. And like the little children, Mom, Dad, but it must be bad. Or they really need it. But if they don't, like, I can do them by myself, all by myself, all by myself. And this is us. the higher spirits, and the example of them all, Jesus, they didn't behave like this. Totally opposite. They recognize their dependence on God at every second, to the point that Jesus often reminded us, I'm here because our Father wants me to be here. For God's sakes, if we had a tenth of His power, we would probably say, I can do it all. How often we have a little bit of more power and we start playing like we don't need anybody, not even God. No, don't talk about God now. Well, but is there a moment where God is not? The minute we feel we're so connected to God that there's no moment where God is not, we're doing just like that, seeking first the kingdom of God and God's proposal. I'm going to the supermarket. Inside, God, you want me to go there to do grocery shopping for the family. Guide me, because sometimes in the pathway, God wants us to help somebody who's thinking of suicide. In the books by Andrea Lewis, we're going to see how hard it is for the high spirits to find help in the physical realm because people are often distracted. And when they see somebody who is prayerful in a business meeting or in a family reunion, they can use that person to sometimes, like pixie dust, in words, in actions, change a little bit, or just bring that vibration of calmness without words. And he says, and all things will be given to us in abundance. How do you feel when you read these words? When you hear it? Do you feel there's some remedy to anxiety in there? Trust, faith, courage, hope, love of God for us. So he says, do not be anxious for tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day has enough evil of its own. He knows it. He has a lot of credit to say it. Right? I'm not going to doubt. Peace of mind. Yes. Does that mean we're not going to plan our lives? No, we will plan with peace of mind. Yes, Jani.
I'm here thinking, to me, this was beautiful. Then, I would say up to 2 to 3 years ago, this was beautiful, but it wasn't meaningful to me. Until you go through the pain and you realize you have to surrender. And your anxiety is actually coming from the, you're looking for control from what you can't control. And it's only when you surrender and you let the control go that you go like, okay, I have to believe in a higher power. For me, it was quicker to get to that point because I've been born in this, so I knew there was something. But you really have to surrender yourself and kind of forget the need for control to then have this, he's saying, have meaning to you. So I feel like many of us are not at that point that we find it beautiful because we see the meaning of it, but we don't totally accept because we're still trying to control what we can with what we know, and in the sense of does it really exist because I don't see the spirits. sometimes, right? Like the children lose sight of the parents,
Yeah.
and if the parents are in another room, they're going to think, do the parents exist?
Yeah.
So it's the release of anxiety only comes with the surrender of. It's out of my control, and it's okay because a higher power has a plan for me, and it's my time to accept what is on my way.
Yes, thank you. And one of the things, everything that you said is on track. There's one thing we need to highlight, because I haven't said it yet. And thank you, Rejane. You said it. Because of your background, it was easier. That's the secret. That's why we do the Spiritist education for children. And you were right. Because if we are coached from the get-go to believe in God, to trust in God, that there is God, that we're never alone, that we're loved and protected, and we're here to progress, when we experience any challenge, we're not going to give up easily. We're going to be able to transform situations that are true adversities into blessings that were in disguise. So it's vital. I hear parents say, when they grow up, I'm going to teach them. I don't think so. Because it's going to be too late. We need it since they were being gestated. Before they were gestated, but let's say it. The minimum gestation. At any given point, we need to insert it. That idea, that feeling, that certainty that God is all there is, nothing else. And even dare to tell our children, if one day I'm not here, and your dad is not here, nobody else, you still have God. So you're safe. No, but Mom, tell him, God is above us. God can do anything. I can't. I'm not going to play God. Because there are many parents who play God, and it's a disaster. We don't. We say, if I'm not here, and your dad's not here, God is always here. They need to learn to pray, to communicate. Because the good spirits, God always sent messengers. Always send messengers. God sends messengers all the time. When we're feeling good, you bet it's not coming from us. Not because we're not capable, but because that extra good is extra. It comes from protecting spirits. I will say this in modern words. We have spiritual babysitters. And they have monitors. We're always being monitored. Always. Read André Louis' books. And if people say, but Vanessa, you're talking about books now, I can talk about experience as well, but it's not the case. Read the books because it's explained there. But each and every one of us here has at least one experience in life in which you can vouch that some other spirits came and approached and intervened, and that's why things didn't derail. So he's saying, don't be anxious. So next time we're anxious, let's just recall this sentence. The calming voice of the Master telling us, don't be anxious. Don't be anxious, for tomorrow will take care of itself. You're not alone. None of us are driving solo. We're co-pilots. We're always co-creators. There's only one creator. Everything that we're doing is because God wants us to do, so we just do it with goodness, goodwill. That's our part. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a chapter that we're going to find, many chapters, but there's one particular chapter in which we're going to understand more about simplicity. If you search the word simplicity, you're going to find 11 times. Find it in the Gospel according to Spiritism, in different chapters. Usually, it's reporting simplicity of Jesus' message or simplicity of the symbols used by Jesus. I'll open up parentheses here, okay? A few weeks ago, we were traveling to Brazil. Part of it was to do some research on Chico Xavier's life. So we were there, and we're going to bring it next week. Lots of information in the Spiritist magazine, at Kardec Radio, in different programs. But we were researching more deeply with people who were with Chico Xavier, the first centers, the house, people in different states who were connected to him for decades. And what was one of the most striking features of Chico Xavier, besides his loving heart on display, was the simplicity. He really walked on the footsteps of the Master Jesus, and his simplicity was a trademark, like the Master. Very uncomplicated. All the stories you hear from people, the letters, everything. He was just being a child of God. He was not pretending, using masks. He was constantly open to talk to people, no matter what hour of the day it was. He never turned anybody down. What amazes us the most is that there was this lady, Terezinha, from Rio de Janeiro, Terezinha de Castro, right? She said, "You don't understand, Vanessa. We're talking about 14,000, 15,000 people in line to talk to him." No, I don't understand. Of course I don't understand. He would give them, for those who were very poor, like $1, but very discreetly. And he would kiss people's hands. Talking about germs, huh? No hand sanitizer right away. Kissing. And he would allow them to kiss his hand. And squeeze it, right, Carlos, to the point that we've heard that the next day he would be. You saw it?
Yeah, I noticed.
You know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He would be swollen in his hand. You think he complained about it?
No.
No.
Because I don't feel like it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He said it was like the squeeze of love. Never heard anybody, any story saying that he turned anybody down. But I've heard, and I've seen other speakers and mediums. I've seen with my own eyes, turning them down, people down, for an autograph, for a word, etc. But having time to shop around at stores in the United States. Very complicated. We're living at a time in the Spiritist movement where people are complicating too much the delivery of the message, making people pay to watch Spiritist talks. giving excuses that those talks are highly edited by professionals and we need to pay these professionals. Very unlike the gospel. That's not simple. Complicating everybody's life. Because then to deliver the message, you need a highly edited video. We don't. Thanks to Facebook, YouTube, anyone can turn the phone on, enter, and share. Because if we depend on a highly specialized team with many cameras, highly edited videos, we're never going to deliver it. I'm sorry. But thank God the world is ahead of us, allowing us to cut short and simply turning on and sharing. We are being called tonight to be simpler, to simplify our lives, to make it less complicated. You know, we want to say more. Many people, when I came to the United States, said, "Oh, Vanessa, it's good that you're a scientist and a spiritist, because people in the U.S. are going to believe things when scientists start talking about spiritism." We're living at a time in which even scientists are not being believed at all in the most tangible things like climate change. Science is not the next religion. And we scientists are not going to be believed because of a title. In a tiny little thing that we've studied for years. This is not about the reasoning. It's about feeling as well. Jesus didn't come to complicate our lives. He said, just let go of the complications. He said, blessed are the pure in the heart. This is chapter 8 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. Item 3, rescuing one of Jesus' recommendations. Blessed are the pure in the heart. What is it? Let us extract his own words. I'm going to ask Juliano now to help us. Is that okay, Juliano, please?
In stating that the kingdom of heaven is for the simple, Jesus means that no one is admitted into it without simplicity of heart and humility of spirit.
But there are people who make conditions even to love in a family setting. Like, yes, I'll be kinder to you if, and then they put lists of conditions. That's very complicated. Or like, and I'll bring back to the Spiritist setting. I've heard a Spiritist speaker once saying, in Virginia, I brought, at the end of the talk, a person who didn't speak Portuguese, needed translation, was experiencing cancer, to ask a question, very private question to the speaker. So I said, can you please, do you mind answering to this private question? Oh, no problem. So I translated it. But then when I got home, that speaker's turned to me, pointing a finger to my face and saying, never, ever do that again. I didn't come here to do any counseling. I came here to give a talk. That's not simplicity of the heart. We need this one-on-one. Chico Xavier did exactly what Jesus did. He didn't talk to the masses. He was in the masses. Teaching us there are no conditions. I see parents who are so busy. They complicate so much their lives, they have no time for their children. If you don't have many minutes, make that 1 minute be the minute. How? Tell your children you love them. Oh, but they know, they don't know. They don't know. Do you know if your parents love you? Sometimes we doubt. Oh yeah, they changed our diapers, they put us to good schools, and they gave us this, that, and the other. But when was the hug given? When did they say they love us? But in our current generation, we need to change it. To be more explicit, expressing our love. But it's more than words, and then we start singing the song, right? More than words. I agree, it's more than words, but we need to say the words. And the hugs. And the smiles of approval. Sometimes not even the word. Our children know when we're looking at them with admiration. To the point that they say, aren't you going to laugh at what I said? Because at that moment we didn't pay attention. But they know we pay attention. They know we like the way they entertain people around. They know we're present. And some people say, oh, but you have a great relationship with your daughter. It's not a given. It's a construction. It's hard work of love. If I ever try to be the opposite, I doubt I'll get to the same result. Because there's something inside of our hearts that tells, protect yourself from harm. And love is never harmful. And in our relationships between spouses, family members, we also need to cultivate that attention, that loving care. And it's so simple. It's much harder not to do it. You have to be stiff. Make an effort to contract your muscles and not to smile. It's hard. It's hard. You see, when we smile and we laugh, everything's relaxed. It flows. So much so that many people need to drink alcohol to feel that relaxed. But if you learn how to push those buttons in your brain, you don't need alcohol. You can be as silly as a drunk without being drunk.
Very true.
And that pays off because there's no side effect. So it's much easier to be simple in the heart and say, I'm going to love. Why? Just because. But what if they hurt you? That's their problem, not mine. Not to love is a problem for us. Not to be loved by others is a problem for others. In the Spirit's book, we find simplicity. Question 673, God loves simplicity in all things. So if we want to please God, and we should strive to please God, it's the law of worship. It's one of the laws we're under. How can I please God? Not because God needs us to please him or her, but it's good for us to be in tune. Be simple. Today when I was coming here, I said, we're talking about simplicity, but I'm showing slides, PowerPoint. That's very complicated. And then Joseph smiled and said, but it's going to help them because you cannot deliver it all on your own. let the PowerPoint help you. And I said, okay, I will. So it's
Wow.
simple now, because we'll never forget the image we're seeing. We may forget what I say, but we won't forget this. God loves simplicity in all things. So if we just stop right here, we can visualize simplicity every day in everything and ask ourselves, am I calibrated with God? Is what I am doing simple or not? If it's complicated, change it. Sometimes it's simpler to stay quiet. We're so anxious when we are amongst people. We start talking nonsense just to talk. When we're in gatherings, like networking at work, or at work, we feel like this anxiety, oh my gosh, I have to say something, or people are not gonna know I'm so smart, and I think it's simpler to be quiet if we have nothing to say. And it's okay. You think Jesus was always talking? No. Rarely. When asked, when really needed, he was often silent. And that's okay. So be silent and accept. Don't be anxious, like, I have to talk, oh my gosh, what if I don't talk? People are gonna think this, people are gonna think that. They're gonna think I don't like them. Like family reunions, right? But you can talk with your eyes, with a smile, with calmness, like calming face, serenity in your tone of voice, or in your pause, or in your silence. And that's okay. If it is simpler, you can stay quiet. I know people who have reached big positions at work, who cultivated that level of silence. At first, when I was younger, I didn't understand how, because they were exception. The rule in the world is that the one that talks the most actually reaches the highest. Nowadays we're seeing that not necessarily you need to be wise, and sometimes wisdom is about being silent, not saying anything. But we Spiritists, we know, we feel, we vibrate, there are good spirits around, and it's okay to be silent. I don't need to be the center of attention. And because I believe in God, saying what I need to say, or I want to say, or I think I need to say, not necessarily is going to get me to places. So we would stop right here and take this home, that we're going to adore God by cultivating this simplicity in everything, including eating. Sometimes just bread and butter is better than a fancy meal that has many more calories, or just an apple, because one apple a day keeps the doctor away. Can't be simpler than that, right? So friends, let us bring that remedy to our hearts and cultivate simplicity wherever we go, in all things. I think we feel less anxious, right? Okay? Right now, we're going to dim the lights to continue in the last part of our work. This part is the collective passes in which the high spirits come They may be invisible to your eyes, but you will feel